Hello, I'm Marilla Sargent, Vice President and Branch Manager of the Montlake Terrace office of Home Street Bank. Home Street Bank is proud to sponsor these videos, which will help the voters make an informed choice in the November elections.
Welcome to Election 2017. I'm your host, Teresa Whipple, and today we are welcoming into the studio Fred Gouge, who is a candidate for Port of Edmonds Commission District 1. Welcome to the program.
Well, Teresa, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you about Edmonds and the port and the lovely town we live in.
Very good, and we're going to start by having you talk a little bit about yourself and why you are running for re-election to the port.
Well, I moved to Edmonds in 1962. Because of the waterfront, my parents moved here, and I built our first boat in '64, became a marine attendant in 1965, and then I worked for the port when I was going to college, and been a tenant for 40-plus years in the marina. And in early 1996, I was running my own aerospace company division, and so I decided to see what was going on with our mortgage rates, what's happening with the finances of the port. And went to meetings for almost 4 years before I ran my first election in 1999. Ben Kane was retiring, and I was asked if I would be interested in putting myself up in a port commission seat. I thought about it, and then I learned a lot. I loved the port business, went to the meetings, still was a tenant. Had to raise my own mortgage rates many times, which is tough when you go home with those mortgage rate increases. But I just love what the port does. It's a great community asset. We get to do a lot of great things at the port. We get to take it. We've got the Sea Jazz program now, all these great programs we brought along. But to me, I've raised my family here. My family's been involved in the waterfront. I just love everything about it. I'm enthused all the time about what goes on at the marina, the things we can do better for the people, because it belongs to the people of Edmonds and Woodway. I just represent the people, and I am proud to do that.
Okay, and it sounds like you've been on the Port Commission for a while, and what would you point to as your greatest accomplishment as a Port Commissioner since you've been there?
I think one of the greatest accomplishments that we as all the commissioners have been is getting Sea Jazz down there, getting students involved, making sure the waterfront is a clean environmental. We're the 2006 Marina of the Year and National Marina of the Year. That's quite an accomplishment. We're a clean marina. We're a 5-star marina. We brought in the state-of-the-art washdown systems. We have oyster shells. We have a state-of-the-art boat yard. So those are some of the great things we've done. We now have tourism. The state legislature granted us tourism. So we have the whale watching. Over 15,000 people are going to go through the whale watching program this year. That's bringing tourism to town. The other great thing we did was the Destination Port of Edmonds that other marinas have emulated, bringing tourists into town. They come, they're boaters, they come and stay at the marina. We take those people up to town, they shop, they leave their money, and yet they get to come back to town and visit our great town.
Okay. And of course, for people who don't know, the Sea Jazz program is actually Edmonds Woodway High School students,
That's right, Edmonds
who come
Woodway
and
High
play
School.
jazz on
Yes,
the waterfront?
on the waterfront. Some great artists there. In fact, they had a reunion of 30-some of them on the waterfront here just a few weeks ago. So, and they've gone to be great musicians throughout our state.
Okay, good. All right. And let's talk about, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the cameras were rolling, about kind of the relationship between the port and the city. It seems to keep coming into the spotlight from time to time. And one of the things that, has kind of been in the forefront lately is some rhetoric I've heard at city council meetings and, in the media about people who seem to think that the port doesn't care about the environment, is more interested in development than protecting the Edmonds Marsh and the waterfront. What would you say to those who have that perception?
Well, let's first address the question number one, the relationship with the city. I think I have a great relationship, and I think all of our commissioners have a great relationship with the city staff, the mayor. We go back many, many years. Being a commissioner for the last 18 years, I've sat in a lot of city council meetings, and I've been through many city councils, probably 4 or 5 different city councils since I first became a commissioner. We get along great with 3 to 4 of the council people. Other council people, they're elected by the people and they make decisions, but as far as the city and the staff, we get along great. They help us when we need permitting. We partner together on issues. On the overpass, we partner with the city. We have a great relationship with the mayor. And when we had Stephen Clifton as our community services director, we partnered with the city when we were going to possibly move the ferry. We were going to allow the ferry to be over the top of the north breakwater. So, I mean, we've done a lot of things to work with the city. it's politics sometimes, unfortunately, and we're nonpartisan, so.
Yeah, and somebody had mentioned to me once too that maybe there's some natural tension just because the port and the city have different areas that they're responsible for, right?
Yes,
So-
well, we actually have different missions. You know, we're a for-profit organization sanctioned by the state legislature. So that means we can do bonding, things that the city can't do. We are economic development. That's what the state legislature wanted us to do, is become the economic engine for your community. And that's what we cherish to do. And sometimes you've got to have development and environment. They've got to work together. They've got to be cohesive. You know, we work with the tribes. You have to have tribes on salmon issues and things like that. So that's a great thing. I mean, the tribes are our partner.
And, you know, I think somebody had pointed out to me that I sometimes forget about this too, but that the port actually was instrumental in doing cleanup of Harbor Square in the early days, right?
Well, yes, and one of the latest things we had done, we had actually had to take Harbor Square back in 2006 because there was some pollution underneath Harbor Square from former tenants. They found some bunker C oil in one of the clean-outs, so we did a voluntary cleanup. We spent almost $2 million removing all the sediments and everything. We put in new stormwater systems over at Harbor Square, 2006, 2007. And then what we did is we took, and lately, we put on clean roofs. Everything we do at Harbor Square and around the port is we look at it environmentally, financially, fiscally responsible for the taxpayer. So we went in, we took all the asphalt roofs off, and we put in the clean roof systems. We've taken and on our drain systems, or we've put we call them cowboy hats, filtrations. We're the only ones that are filtering water going into Harbor Square. So we've, you know, in the last 4 to 6 years, we spent almost $4 million of the taxpayers' money, but we didn't use the taxpayers, we used revenue from everything. We do not use taxpayers' dollars to do any of that cleanup. So it's very important that we believe in the taxpayer just being a very important person in our scheme of everything we do. So we try to do everything with revenues.
Okay. And speaking of Harbor Square, let's talk a little bit more about that. The Harbor Square Business Complex,
Yes.
where you've got some buildings that have been there a while, and are there those, you know, kind of, what do they call them, pop-up?
Tilt-up concrete.
Tilt-up, that's right,
Yes,
tilt-up concrete.
Old-style technology.
Old style.
Mhm.
And a while ago, several years ago, the port had proposed a plan for doing some redevelopment at Harbor Square that the city took a look at, and being kind of in charge of the land use part of that, it was clear they weren't going to approve it, and so the port decided they weren't going to move forward with it. But that process raised some interesting discussions about what should be there, and you know, some of the part of what I remember from your proposal, the port's ideas, they included some mixed use, some residential, some things
Right.
like that, some buildings that were a little taller than what we might be used to in that area. And there are some people who think that that's a good idea. There are some people who think there should never be residential in that area for a variety of reasons. What is your thinking about that at this point?
Well, a little bit of history of that. Close to 15 years ago, the city council came to the port and asked us if we wanted to do some redevelopment at Harbor Square. So it started with that, and we were not the owners of the buildings. We only owned the property on a ground lease with the buildings. So we had to work with the tenant. We had a group of 33 citizens get together and do a study on it. We had open public houses on it. That proposal failed. Years later, we started the other proposal. We have to do a master plan of harbor improvements and schemes according to the legislature to do anything. And so we started the process. We had citizen involvement. We had public hearings. The port did public hearings on that process. So people could have come down to our meetings and public hearings that we had. Then it had to go to the planning board. It had multiple hearings at the planning board, and it was approved unanimously by the planning board. So it was a proposal. It's only proposal to get entitlements. The port develops nothing. We were looking for developers. We believe in the private sector doing all the development, but we were trying to get the entitlements, the height, the width, and the size.
Yeah.
And so it went to city council. City council didn't like it. They just were against it. A group of citizens were against it. So we pulled the project. It's not going anywhere. I'm not going to spend any more of the citizens' money on this project. We will then take Harbor Square. We will spend a lot of money on roofs and infrastructure and maintain it for the next 20 years or so, because I wasn't going to put money into buildings I was going to tear down. It would be very fiscally irresponsible.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of the long and the short of the story. We're not doing any development. I've gone on record at City Council, we're not doing any development at Harbor Square. We have no plans for development. That's for somebody in the future or a future City Council change. But right now, it's making almost $1.8 million, and the bond note is paid off in less than 3 years. So we will be debt-free at the Port of Edmonds for the citizens, so we can use that money for infrastructure, the rebuilding of the marina, and other future projects for the citizens of Edmonds and Woodway.
Okay. Let's talk about, you mentioned the kind of the financial piece, and, you know, the port obviously is in good financial shape, correct? And
Yes.
all is going well there. But I'm sure that there are maybe some challenges that you're looking at. What are some of those?
Well, the challenges that we always look at the future. We're supposed to be the people that, for the community, that look out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. One of the major challenges we're going to have is our marina is only 20 years old, but they have a life of about 40 to 50 years. The cost to rebuild a marina in today's dollars would be over $30 million. So I've got to look at this future all the time of where do we come up with $30 million. Luckily, in the last 8 or 9 years, we've been very financially prudent and conservative. We have almost $13 million in the bank right now, and that is for bond reserves, paying debt service. We have $600,000 in an environmental fund put aside for any cleanup that's needed anywhere, and we're growing those funds. But if you don't have the cash, I don't want to have the taxpayer have to pay for a new marina. They supported the Port of Edmonds for years, the citizens of Edmonds and Woodway, and now it's for, we have things called cost centers, where the boater, everybody needs to pay their fair share for what they use. That's one of the challenges. The other challenge is, of course, the environment. That's a big thing that we look at. We're looking at more state-of-the-art cleaning facilities, that we can water filtration into the marsh. How do we partner with the city on the daylighting of Willow Creek? I was just with Keely O'Connell today in her meeting about the marsh. So that's another big issue. I mean, we have to marry the environment and the infrastructure together. It's just not a one fit all. You just can't make it a park. We have a responsibility to the citizens to look out for their dollars and their property. We have over $50 million in assets. That's a big responsibility to oversee. But that's one of the main things. The other thing is tourism. Since the legislator gave us tourism, we've got the whale watching. We may be looking at a mosquito fleet coming on board, maybe Argosy cruises, doing something with the fishing pier. But the other challenge is going to be the new Edmonds Waterfront Center. They're going to, if you've looked at the plan, they're actually going to be taking some of the parking away. Well, we have a high demand on parking right now down at the waterfront on a summer day. There is no parking. It's
tough.
And so with sound transit and the waterfront center come online, the demand with the whale watching is great revenue for the taxpayer here. Jacobson Marine's doing a fantastic job with their boat sales. Harbor Square Athletic Club is just over 1,000 members a day are using Harbor Square Athletic Club. So we have a parking issue. So we're going to have to partner with the local businesses that own property in town, the Echo Bargers and some of the other people, Sound Transit, the Edmonds Waterfront Community Center, and the port. We're going to have to do some private-public partnership for a parking structure. We're going to need a parking structure in town. We see it. We know we have height limitations. It's 25 feet on the one side of the tracks. It's 35 feet on the other side at Harbor Square. So it's a balancing act, but we've got to look for that future vision. And parking structures are $30,000 to $50,000 a stall. So that's a huge amount of money we need to come up with. But it's going to be needed for the future. The fishing pier. One of the few places you can fish on Puget Sound.
Yeah.
And we have a parking lot in conjunction with the city of Edmonds to allow people to use that to park for fishing. But the demand on the waterfront, we've got to help. That's our job, is to help. But there again, partnering, not just using tax dollars, but let's partner with everybody. Public-private partnership.
Yeah, and of course, again, for those who may not remember or be aware, the Edmonds Waterfront Center is going to be the remodeled Edmonds Senior Center.
Yes.
And
yes.
Become a beautiful, multi-generational, multi-use facility. The designs are quite fabulous, and hopefully that's going to be...
It's going to be a great center for
soon.
youth, us seniors nowadays. I'm one of those seniors now, so
Yeah.
which we'd love it. And walking, and being able to walk from the ferry dock all the way down to South Marina Beach. I mean, the port spent almost $1 million building that bridge just for the access to the waterfront.
Yeah, okay, very good. Well, why don't we take this opportunity now for you to directly address the voters? You're welcome to do that and tell them why they should vote for you.
Well, the port is something that's very, very special to me, living at Edmonds here. I take my job seriously. You know, it's a fun job, but, you know, after 18 years, I've only missed 1, 2, 3, or 4 meetings, or if I was out of town, we did teleconferences. You know, I have a stellar voting record. It's very important to me to participate in what's going on in your community and give back. We've been very fortunate to live in Edmonds, and it's just something that, to me, is, without being a port commissioner, you know, my life will go on, but it's very important to take the job seriously, because it's a business. It's not politics, it's a nonpartisan position, and so you need to look for the public's best interest, and that's what I feel I have done in the last 18 years. So that's what I have to say, and thank you very much, Teresa.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for coming in today, and I wish you the
Well,
best of
well,
luck
thank you
in the
very much.
election.
Thank
Okay,
you very much. All right,
you.
thank you. All right.